Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first ever edition of the King and Kids Wrestling Show. I'm Gunner. I'm King Gunner. This is
Little Gator.
Little Smidge. But anyway, what we're going to be doing is on this channel, we're going to be talking wrestling, reviewing wrestling, doing all of that. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. If not, I wish you the best of luck. But what my goal is I'm trying to teach my son. He's a big wrestling fan. Him and his brother want to be pro wrestlers. And so I figured the best way to do that is for them to learn pro wrestling. And so I've taken them back pretty far. What we're going to be doing is going year by year. He's getting to see all the old wrestling pay-per-views, all the old wrestling matches. And what we're going to do is we're going to review them and after each show. The first show, and we basically where we started at was Starrcade 1983. Obviously, that was the beginning of many of the pay-per-views. In fact, I don't even know if it was necessarily a pay-per-view. But Starrcade, NWA Starrcade 1983, happened on November 24th, 1983, in Greensboro, North Carolina. About 15,447 people were there to see the event. It was called A Flair for the Gold. Now, with that said, that was my son's first opportunity to see some of the old wrestling. I do have another son, but for some reason he can't get into old wrestling. I'm not really sure why, but he just doesn't. What is your thoughts, just right off the jump, on some of the older wrestling?
The older wrestling, I believe, is more entertaining because people think you have to do 5 black backflips off the top rope to be an interesting wrestler. No, interesting, you have personality. More wrestlers had more personality back then. Their names weren't as generic, too. They're not just using, names that a regular guy would have. They would have names such as Abdullah the Butcher, the Barbarian.
That's absolutely right. Everybody today seems to go by their real name. Now, with Starrcade 1983, it was the big boy. This was before WrestleMania. Now, many people don't understand that. Many people think WrestleMania was the start of the big wrestling events, and it actually was not. Starrcade 1983 in Greensboro, North Carolina, had 8 huge matches. We are going to start there. We're going to go down the list and kind of review the entire show. So, for today's video number 1, episode number 1, Starrcade 1983. Now, in the opening match, we had the Assassins defeating Rufus R. Jones and Bugsy McGraw. Back in the day, the quality of their video, the quality of Starrcade was not that great, but you still got to basically see the matchups. You still got to see them, and you got to enjoy what it was. I personally gave this match 3 stars. I thought it was decent. I thought it was a typical old-school tag team match. I did like the entire Assassins gimmick. I always have. I'm not really sure, but with that being the case, many of us remember the Assassins. Not too many of us remember Rufus R. Jones or Bugsy McGraw. With that being said, Daniel, Smidge, any comments on this matchup to start off the Starrcade 83 pay-per-view?
I actually liked the beginning match of the Assassins. I always thought they kind of looked like the conquistadors with the black uniform instead of a gold. It was a great match. I noticed that it's more entertaining. They didn't have to be jumping off ropes to be exciting. They could just do clotheslines, and the characters were more interesting. This was a lot better of a tag team match. The tag team division back then was more stacked than it is now. I personally enjoyed the match. If I had to rate the match personally, I'd give it a 4 just because the great match in general.
Absolutely, absolutely. Not bad, not bad. Number 2, we saw Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster, and Mark Lewin defeat Scott McGee and Johnny Weaver. I'm a huge Kevin Sullivan guy. I like Kevin Sullivan. I think they're trying to do it today with Bray Wyatt in the WWE, the same type of gimmick. Daniel has yet to see Kevin Sullivan at his greatness, and he will as soon as we get further along in the WCW and things of that nature. He'll get to see Kevin Sullivan and realize how crazy Kevin Sullivan is. And he'll get to hear about the story of Kevin Sullivan, Nancy Sullivan, who later became, obviously woman, who obviously later became Nancy Benoit and Chris Benoit, and we all see what happened there. But a lot going on with that. Kevin Sullivan and Mark Lewin, their victory, I gave it, is actually a 5-star match. Kevin Sullivan is a mastermind in that ring. The way he does things mentally and controls the match and tells a perfect story, I loved it. With that being said, your opinion on the second match of the night?
I agree with your opinion. I give it a 5 out of 5 just for the fact that he didn't have to talk for you to know what was happening. In the match, he spoke with the moves in general. He showed what was happening in the moves, not the talking.
A very bloody match, too, as you typically get with Kevin Sullivan. And our next match, the third match of the night, Carlos Colon, Primo's, I believe, father.
And Carlitos.
Carlitos' father. He lost to Abdullah the Butcher, Mr. Hepatitis. This man always bleeds. It's just always that way. I gave this match a 3 stars because, I enjoyed it. But then again, Abdullah the Butcher matches are very simple. He pulls out a weapon or a pin and jabs it in your head, and that's pretty much the way things go. But I do like watching Abdullah the Butcher matches. My favorite one actually is the one match that most people don't like, and that was the electrocution match, the Cage of Horrors and Halloween Havoc in WCW later, in which he was electrocuted. I actually really enjoyed that, and he still hasn't seen it yet. But this I give it 3 stars. But I do enjoy watching Abdullah the Butcher, and it was interesting to get to show him Carlos Colon.
My thoughts on the match was I have to give it a 4-star match because the reason I'm giving it a 4-star, I gave a lot of matches in the beginning 4 and 5 stars. Well, I'm giving this a 4-star because I've never really seen Abdullah the Butcher. I've noticed his matches are simple, but they're hardcore, which that's what I like. I like seeing hardcore matches like ECWs and all that. So he says there's an electrocution match happening at Halloween Havoc. That's interesting, but we're going to focus on this pay-per-view. And this pay-per-view, I just really enjoyed the match. A few slams and a few stabs. It's a great match.
Cool. Fourth match, we got Randy Orton's dad, Bob Orton, and Dirty Dick Slater teaming up to beat Mark Youngblood and Wahoo McDaniel. It was another decent tag team match. I give it 3 stars. See some of the legends out there during their prime. It was definitely good to see. It also gave me an opportunity to show him Bob Orton, Dick Slater, Wahoo McDaniel, and Mark Youngblood. With that being said, any thoughts on that tag team match?
I actually thought it was a great match, and I have to give it a 3 too. It was an okay match, but I still liked it. It was really interesting to just see the old ones like Dick Slater and Rob Orton beating Wahoo Youngblood, and it's just a great match. I love the match, but I still have to give it a 3. It wasn't as great as the others in this pay-per-view.
Cool. We had a TV title match, the NWA Television Championship versus The Mask. And that's when Charlie Brown, he kept his mask as he defeated and took the television title from the Great Kabuki. I gave this match 3 stars. I do like the gimmick matches typically. I do like the mask versus mask or mask versus title match. I do like them. With this being said, though, I'm not a big Charlie Brown or Great Kabuki follower. So, not necessarily a whole lot of excitement going on. With that said, though, we saw a new champion. So I gave it 3 stars.
I give it a 3-star also, just because the story behind the match was great, and there are just great competitors in the ring as well. But the storyline's really what did it for me.
Sounds good. Next one, a legendary epic match, dog collar match, Rowdy Piper, Greg the Hammer Valentine. One of the most legendary matches in the history of pro wrestling. It gets a 5-star match. 5 stars from me, all the way. Roddy Piper doesn't get much better when it comes to brawlers. Greg Valentine, one of the most underrated wrestlers in the history of the business. Just one of the most top-notch guys you'll see out there. Thought it was an amazing match. Greg Valentine, much like Ric Flair, always looks interesting when he bleeds. You see that blonde hair all bloody, and I always loved that shit. I always loved it. With that being said, I give it 5 stars. It was definitely, in my opinion, with the exception of the main event, possibly, I think it was the match of the night, with the exception of the main event, which we'll get to later. But I give it 5 stars. Your thoughts?
Definitely 5-star. Just seeing how the guys who eventually who eventually did come to the WWE, I really enjoyed it. And I noticed how this, like he always says, WWE ruins characters. Roddy Piper never really won anything in the WWE. Same with Greg the Hammer Valentine. But in WCW, they were great competitors. They were great competitors in the WWE as well. But in WCW, they were just great as ring generals, is what I would say. They're great talents. I'm just surprised they didn't win anything in WWE with all that talent they had in NWA.
Not bad, not bad. And you're right. Next match, we had a special referee, Angelo Mosca, in this matchup for the tag team titles. We had Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Jay Youngblood win the tag team titles by defeating Jerry and Jack Briscoe, the Briscoe brothers. Definitely good to see him, show him the Briscoe brothers, getting him out there. He got to saw the other Youngblood, Jay Youngblood, and of course the legendary Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who, in my opinion, has the corniest promos ever. And but in general, though, the match was great. Ricky Steamboat, they don't pay him for his promos. They obviously pay him for his in-ring talent. And once again, another title to the list. Ricky Steamboat, tag team champion, new champs. I give it a 4-star.
I also have to give it a 4-star. I just love seeing Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in the ring. He's a great ring competitor. Same with Jay Youngblood and the Briscoes. They are all great ring competitors, and I just really enjoyed it. Seeing an old tag team match like this really convinced me that tag team matches back then were 10 times better than now.
Absolutely. You saw a lot of tag team matches just on this show alone. With that being said, we move on to the 8th match of the night, the main event, the cage match for the NWA Heavyweight Championship of the World. We had a special referee, Gene Kiniski, and what we had is the legendary champion, Harley Race, doing what Andre the Giant later did in the WWE, doing what many people do. He passed the torch. Harley Race defended his championship, lost his championship to the Nature Boy. This is the match, in my opinion, that sent Ric Flair down his road to being the greatest of all time. The torch was passed by Harley Race this night. Ric Flair, your new world heavyweight champion in the NWA, with the big cage win over Harley Race. The crowd went nuts. Ric Flair cried. 5-star matchup. Once again, another legendary match in the history of pro wrestling. It's 2 in the same show that I think go in the top whatever list of matches of all time. Ric Flair era starts tonight. 1983, November 24th. Ric Flair era started truly in my eyes.
5-star match indeed. Woo! Nature Boy Ric Flair beat Harley Race in the steel cage match. Steel cage matches aren't like now to win that you have to run away. Steel cage matches, you had to actually pin your opponent and not run away. It was a great match. I loved the match. Ric Flair era starts to have the most world titles of all time.
That was the thing. That was the wonderful thing about cage matches back in the day. That was the point of cage matches, is they were supposed to keep you in. That was the whole point of cage matches in general. If I got you in a cage, that meant you couldn't run from me, you couldn't escape. So the WWE kind of screwed it all up by saying, well, you can win the match by getting out of the cage. You're not supposed to be able to get out of the cage. That's why I do like the old WCW cages where they locked you in with the, and I did like that. I loved it, the old NWA cages. And don't get me wrong, I did like the old school blue WWE cage too. It had its wonderful moments.
You didn't have to run in the old school WWE.
Right. Now, with that being said, this is our first review. We've obviously great event, Starrcade. Great event, and looking forward to doing the rest. Your opinion? I give it a 4-star for the entire card.
I have to give it 4.5. The reason I'm getting 4.5, I believe all the matches were really great matches. 2 of those matches, like you said, were the great in a top maybe 20 match of all time.
Absolutely. With that said, for the King and Kids, we're out of here.